Hi everyone, in this video I want to show you a game between Fabiano Caruana and Viswanathan Anand. The game was played in 2017 London Chess Classic round 5. Before this round, Caruana was leading the tournament. Let's see the game. White started with e4 and Black replied with e5. Knight to f3, attacking the pawn, and knight to c6, defending it. Bishop to b5, entering the Lopez, and knight to f6, the Berlin defense. And White played d3. White refuses to enter into the famous line where the queens are exchanged early in the game. That line would occur if White would have played short castle. After short castle, Black would take on e4, White would play d4, knight to d6, attacking the bishop, bishop takes on c6, d takes on c6, d takes on e5, attacking the knight, knight to f5, queen takes on d8, king takes on d8, the queens are exchanged, and this line was popularized by Kramnik in 2000 in his match against Kasparov. In the game, White played d3 and bishop to c5, controlling a7, g1 diagonal. White develops the knight towards the center, a short castle. Black king is safe, and now White should continue his development of the dark square bishop to g5. But White decided to give up his bishop pair and inflicts double pawn for Black on the c file. I don't like this move for White because of three reasons. The d file is open for Black, the light square bishop can be developed, and Black has the bishop pair. And the only disadvantage for Black is that he has double pawns. White continue with h3, controlling g4 and preventing bishop to g4, pinning the knight. And knight to d7. The knight is protecting the pawn from e5, but it's blocking the light square bishop to develop. The best way for Black was to continue with development with bishop to e6, but first play h6 due to knight to g5. For the moment, taking the pawn from e5 would be wrong. One move earlier. So here, if White takes the pawn, Black is replying with queen to d4, threatening mate on f2 and the knight from e5. So in the game, knight to d7 was played and bishop to e3. The bishop is developed with tempo attacking the Black bishop, but Black doesn't want to exchange it, so he plays bishop to d6. And White replied with knight to e2, bringing the knight on the king side. He signals that he wants to start an attack on this part of the board. Continuing the development with short castle was better for White. And rook to e8, bringing the rook on a more active square. And g4 from White. White starts an attack on the king side, and probably he will castle long. Knight to c5, the knight goes forward, and he might go to e6, looking at d4 and f4 squares. Knight to g3, the knight is looking to go forward to f5. Knight to e6 and knight to f5. The knight stands on a very good position, he's looking at g7. Black continue with c5, controlling c4 square. White pushes his pawn in order to get to Black king defense and destroy it. White wants to open the g and h files. a5, Black starts a counter-attack on the queen side, knowing that White might castle here. White continues to push in order to open Black king. An interesting move, a rook lift that wants to defend along the 6th rank, and also the rook might come to b6, looking at the b2 pawn. Queen to d2, prepares long castle, and black knight jumps into the center, attacking the knight from f3. White has several possibilities to move the knight to h2, to h4, capture the attacker with the bishop, or defend the knight with rook to h3. In the game, white defended the knight with the rook by playing rook to h3 and bishop to f4, f8. Black retrained his bishop pair and is defending the g7 pawn. Long castle. White finished his development, but black also started an attack on the queen side. Bishop to e6 attacks the pawn from a2 and white defends it with the king. f6, controlling g5 square, white wants to push g5, opening the g file. c3 is attacking the knight on his good central position, but it was better to bring the rook from d1 to the g file. Black took on f3 and white recaptured with the rook. Black stands well in this position. He needs to prevent g5 by playing h6, but in the game he counter-attacked in the center with c4, which is a good thing to do. There is a rule in chess saying that when your opponent attacks you on a flank, you need to attack in the center. White doesn't want to trade on c4 because the queens will be exchanged and his attack will lose steam. So white plays queen to c2, and if black takes, he will recapture with the rook. Black took on d3 and white recaptured with the rook. We can also notice that the e4 pawn is weak now. Queen to c8. We can notice that the black queen is no longer controlling g5, so white can push g5 now, and he did in the game. g5, f takes on g5, and white recaptured with the bishop. Black continues with bishop to f7, attacking the h5 pawn. Better for black was to push h6, preventing a6 from white, not allowing the king to be exposed to the attack. So I continue with h6. This is a free pawn, and black accepts it, and he takes on h6, and white retreated his bishop to c1. But we can notice that the g file is opened, and white can attack on this file. The queen comes into the game, threatening mate on a2, and white pushed b3. And here black continued with a4 in order to open the e file, and white pushed c4, closing the diagonal for the queen and the bishop. And here black takes on b3, opening the a file. Queen to c6, attacking the weak pawn from e4, and rook to g3 check. The king moves from the check, and rook to d1. The queen is defending the pawn from e4. Black strikes with b5, insisting to open more files towards the white king. In the game, white pushed c5, giving a free pawn to black. And here black made an unexpected move by pushing b4, controlling a3 and c3 squares. He should have taken the pawn, the free pawn, and black would have a majority of pawns on the queen side. And another reason why black should have taken the pawn with the queen and exchanging the queens was to release some of the pressure that white has on the king side. We can notice that the black king is not safe on h8, and if white would bring his bishop to b2 on and putting this bishop on the long diagonal and push f4, black would have big problems. So black played b4 and white placed his bishop on the long diagonal, looking at the black king. Black continued with bishop to g6, and the drawback of this move is that the bishop is no longer controlling the a2 g8 diagonal, especially the d5 square, and white rook can go forward attacking the pawn from e5. In chess, every move has a drawback. You move a piece to control new squares, but in the same time you give up control of some other squares, and your opponent can take advantage of this or not, depending of how good it is. So in the game, white played rook to d5, attacking the weak pawn, and black replied with queen to b5. Black is threatening check on f1 with his queen, and white played rook to g1, defending against the check. The best way for white was to attack and not go back. White should have continued his attack with f4, attacking the e5 pawn, and the check from the queen on f1 could have been defended with rook to d1. In this position, black played a losing move. If you want to find it, please pause the video and try to find it by yourself. So black played c6, and the problem with this move is that the pawn is on the 6th rank, and the rook from a6 is no longer participating in the defense. So white took the pawn from e5, black recaptured with the rook, and we have a check on e5 with the bishop. The king moves from the check, and white needs to bring his queen into the game and continue the attack. Here white continued with bishop to d4, defending the pawn from c5, and black king tries to get out of the g file, where white rook is placed on the same file with the king. Knight to h4, threatening to take the bishop, and in this position black resigned. The game might have continued like this: bishop to h5, moving the bishop from the attack, e5, threatening to come with the queen on h7, giving a check, queen to e2, black wants to exchange queens, queen to h7 check, king to e8, queen to a5, threatens queen to c8, winning the rook, also attacks the bishop from h5, it's protecting the pawn from e5 and the one from f2. Check from black, king to c1, queen to a3 check, king to c2, queen to a2 check, bishop to b2, and there is no check. And if the bishop moves with bishop to f7, white can give a check, a mate in 2 with queen to c8, and after king to e7 we have knight to f5 mate. So I hope you learned something from this game. Please watch other games from my channel, and if you like this video, please click the like button and subscribe. See you soon. Bye.